The first career leadoff home run for Corbin Carroll and Merrill Kelly, 6 innings of just 2 earned run ball, lead to the D-backs snapping their 5-game losing streak.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com to see all of my latest work. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free and available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. On today's podcast, we'll be talking about the D-backs snapping their 5-game losing streak. Tommy Henry looking to build momentum off his most recent start. And do the D-backs have a new bullpen formula? We'll talk about all that on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. But I want to say, please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. This offseason, we had a goal of hitting 1,000 subscribers by opening day. You guys, of course, crushed that number. New goal is 2,000 subscribers by the All-Star break. So please hit subscribe to the Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. But now let's talk about the D-backs Game 2 victory against the Colorado Rockies, because the D-backs were able to get back in the win column after a 5-game losing streak to the New York Yankees, to the Atlanta Braves, and to Game 1 of the Rockies. The D-backs are finally able to snap their skid on the backs of Corbin Carroll, Randall Grichuk, and I would say Merrill Kelly as your big three in this one. Carroll starts off the game with a leadoff home run, the first career leadoff home run for Corbin Carroll. It's been a while since he's had a home run. He's been in a bit of a power drought going back to the second half of last season, where the home runs just wasn't going over the fence at the same rate of what he was doing pre-All-Star break last season. We haven't seen the power yet this season for Corbin Carroll. The slugging hasn't exactly been there for Corbin Carroll this year. Only a .318 slugging even after this game, but still good to see Corbin Carroll finally have one of those signature home runs where he swings at the pitch and you're just like, okay, maybe that's a double, maybe that's just a fly ball to, left or right field. But no, it's one of those where Corbin Carroll smacks it. It doesn't look like it's going to travel as far as we expect, and it just keeps going and going over the wall. That's a patented Corbin Carroll home run. It goes a lot farther than what you might have expected or even heard from the crack of the bat. And it was an opposite field home run at that. So even more power that Corbin Carroll needed to drive that one out to left field. Of course, being in Coors Field probably does make it a little bit easier, but nice to see Corbin Carroll jump off to a very good start with the leadoff home run and get the D-backs going, because we know the D-backs are the best first scoring team in Major League Baseball, the best first inning scoring team in Major League Baseball, and they scored 2 runs in the first in this game because Gabriel Moreno was able to get on right after Corbin Carroll, who was really good in this game with 4 hits. Very nice to see the duo of Carroll and Moreno finally get going in this one, because we know those two have really been struggling in this lineup. The rest of this D-backs offense has been really good to start the year. Walker has put in work. Marte has put in work. Suarez, Peterson, Gurriel, Grichuk, even Blaze and the Jake McCarthy's of the world have all contributed. Like at least 7 to 8 D-backs position players have been really impactful for the D-backs in their lineup this year. It's one of the reasons the D-backs offensively are one of the best teams in Major League Baseball. When you look at runs scored so far, when you look at run differential, the D-backs are really good. Team average, team OPS, The D-backs are really good in a lot of offensive metrics, but it wasn't really because of two of their biggest contributors to last year's team in the reigning Rookie of the Year and another really important piece in Gabriel Moreno. Those two players haven't really gotten going for the D-backs this year. And so it was really nice to see those two players get going in this one. Carroll with the home run, Moreno with 4 hits in this one. His slash line now is 250, 357, 389 for Moreno. So he's picking it up a little bit. So good to see those two get going. Randall Grichuk, I mean, in his return tour back to Coors Field, he's looking good so far. We know Torey Lovullo is in love with the platoon situations. A good thing there's, injuries are never good, but you probably don't have Grichuk in this game if it wasn't for injuries. And he proves to you that, sometimes platooning is a little overrated as he goes yard off Cal Quantrill in the second inning. So D-backs offense, they don't do a lot. They just put up 3 runs in the first couple innings. They do what they normally do, which is scoring runs early, but they were not able to keep it going throughout the game. But it was all they needed throughout this game because the D-backs had some pretty strong pitching to back up their lack of offense. Usually it's the offense telling the bullpen, why can't you hold it down? Why can't you shut the door? Like, we're giving you 6-run leads and you still can't win the game. Not the case today. The D-backs pitching was really on point. Rockies, I'll give them credit. They made Merrill Kelly work. The peripherals look good for Kelly. 6 innings, 2 earned runs. That looks really good, but 6 hits allowed, 3 walks. I thought the Rockies had really good plate discipline, really good approach at the plate. I thought they did a really good job of making Merrill Kelly work in this game. Yes, Merrill Kelly was able to generate the whiffs, 10 whiffs on 44 swings, but I thought the Rockies hitters were pretty locked into Merrill Kelly, despite Merrill Kelly only giving up 2 earned runs because, of course, he is an elite pitcher. I still want to give credit where credit is due because I thought the Rockies did look good at the plate against Merrill Kelly. But the most impressive thing from this game was the fact that the bullpen was able to shut down an opposing team for once. Yes, it's the Colorado Rockies, but even the Rockies, as we saw in yesterday's game in game 1, they were able to attack this D-backs bullpen, but not tonight because you know what the D-backs did? They threw out their 3 best relievers after Merrill Kelly came out the game. Think about that. When you're in a close 1-run game, go with the guys you trust the most. And that's what Torey Lovullo did to get his 500th win as manager. Ryan Thompson, who has yet to allow an earned run, he pitched into the 8th. Then Kyle Nelson came in after that, who also has yet to allow an earned run this year. And then after that, Kevin Van Ginkel, who has had an up and down start to the year. We still know he's a stud despite him not pitching like a stud consistently this year. He comes in, he gets the 1, 2, 3, 9th. The D-backs throw out their 3 best relievers in a game that they really want to win, coming off a 5-game losing streak, and the 3 best relievers were able to shut down this Colorado Rockies offense. We'll talk about if the D-backs have finally found a new bullpen formula later in this podcast in segment number 3, because I think this new combination that they threw out tonight should probably be the combination that they go with going forward. So we'll talk about that in segment number 3. But in segment number 2, we'll preview the finale of this series, D-backs versus Rockies, battle of the lefties in game number 3, Tommy Henry versus Austin Gomber. We're going to preview that coming up. But before we get into that little preview, if you want to do a little daily fantasy sports related to that game, then the place you're going to want to do that is, of course, Prize Picks, because spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs. Take your pick, a more or less, and add them to your Prize Picks entries today. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game in to a new level during basketball's postseason, which of course begins April 20th with the playing round the 16th, 17th, and 19th. And so if you want to maybe do a little parlay, I'm going to take LeBron James, his points, his rebounds. I've won before. I've seen money go into my account. So if you want to see money go into your account, you first have to download the app and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast and let's preview the rubber match, the battle of the lefties, Tommy Henry versus Austin Gomber in game number 3. Dbacks, of course, have an off day on Thursday as they travel back to Arizona to face Paul Goldschmidt and the St. Louis Cardinals. I will be there at Saturday's game because I am a real fan and I try to be at as many games as I possibly can. I've already been to 3 games this year, and I believe the D-backs are 3-0 in the games I attend. So hopefully we can keep the streak going this Saturday. But talking about tomorrow's game, Henry versus Austin Gomber. Henry wasn't great in his most recent outing against the New York Yankees, but he at least battled. When you go back and watch that game, he wasn't perfect. He definitely labored, but he made enough pitches in that game to get the Judges and the Sotos out and to limit the damage when he did put runners on the bases and the bottom of the lineup with the Volpes and the Cabreras. Like, Tommy Henry wasn't perfect. He gave up hits, he walked guys, but he didn't give up the major damage, the knockout punches in that game because he did go 5 innings. He did give up 2 earned runs, but the 102 pitches tell you he battled through those 5 innings. It wasn't always perfect, but he was able to get the job done. And so I would love to see Tommy Henry do that once again, build off the momentum that we saw in that start against the New York Yankees. You struggled in your first start of the year against the Colorado Rockies. You looked a little bit better against a better opponent in the New York Yankees. Second time against the Colorado Rockies. Hopefully this could be a redemption story for Tommy Henry. The question is, how is he going to attack these Colorado Rockies hitters? Because against the Yankees, he kind of went with a different sequencing than we saw the first time against Colorado. Because against the Yankees, he leaned on the fastball a lot more than what we saw his first start against Colorado. Basically, his usage of how he used the fastball and curveball in his first start of the year, he basically flipped it in his second start against the Yankees. So want to see if he continues that trend of going more fastball, heavy throws, more harder stuff than opposed to some of his off-speed secondary stuff. Very curious to see how Tommy Henry will attack these Colorado Rockies hitters, especially being in Coors Field as well. Want to see how Tommy Henry attacks this Rockies lineup. And when I'm looking at this Rockies lineup, the guy that gives me the most caution against Tommy Henry is probably going to be Ryan McMahon, who has had a lot of success against Henry in his career. He's 5 for 10 with a couple of extra base hits against Henry in his major league career. So I would say Ryan McMahon is the number one guy that I would want to slow down the most when I'm looking at this Rockies lineup. And if Tommy Henry can continue to build momentum and continue to get better in these starts, maybe he can parlay it into a long relief role once the rest of the rotation gets healthy. I think his destination is probably getting sent back to Reno once this rotation gets healthy, but will at least make the D-backs feel better about calling up Henry in the future if he can at least look good in these games right now. And then just flipping it over to Austin Gomber, I would love to get a repeat performance of what he did the first time against the D-backs, but Kyle Freeland and Cal Quantrill has showed you it's not as easy that second time around. Gomber, his first time against the D-backs, 4 earned runs, over 4.2 innings pitched. Would love to see a repeat performance from Gomber in that first game, and we might get it because Gomber is someone that has struggled against the D-backs in his major league career, and struggle might be an understatement. He has an ERA north of 5, 27 earned runs in 43 innings pitched, and 10 home runs allowed. The D-backs have absolutely crushed Gomber throughout his career. If you look at the current D-backs team, their numbers against Gomber, the current players on the D-backs, they have a team average of 388 with 1199 OPS against Austin Gomber. That's the current players playing for the D-backs. So whether it's the past, whether it's the present, they all crush Austin Gomber. Two players that really crush him, Ketel Marte and Christian Walker. Marte is 7-for-18 with 2 home runs and 2 doubles against Gomber, with Marte being 0 for his last 8, hoping this could be a game that breaks him out of his little mini slump. And then Christian Walker, 5-for-13 in his career against Austin Gomber. And he's someone, not only does he play well against Austin Gomber, Walker is someone that absolutely loves playing in Coors Field. Entering this game against the Colorado Rockies, entering game 2 against the Colorado Rockies, Christian Walker, in his last 150 at-bats at Coors Field, he has 50 hits, so a third of the time he's getting hit. He has 13 home runs, 1075 OPS, and 32 RBIs. Christian Walker crushes Austin Gomber, and he crushes at Coors Field. So with Gabriel Moreno and Corbin Carroll getting going in the second game, if those two can continue that momentum in game 3 with how this D-backs team performs against lefty pitching and how this D-backs team performs against Austin Gomber, this could be a night where the D-backs do damage early in the first 3 innings and cruise for the rest of the evening. But of course, it won't be easy if the bullpen once again is a problem. But I think we saw in game number 2 a formula that could work for the D-backs going forward. So in segment number 3, we'll talk about the D-backs bullpen and ways to improve it going forward. And if you need any parts to improve your car, then the best place you want to go is going to be eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, and let's talk about the bullpen, because the D-backs bullpen has been a problem and it needs to be addressed. And in game number 2, we might have finally found a formula that works until at least Paul Sewald gets back. Because when you look at the D-backs offseason, the one area that Mike Hazen, who had a fantastic offseason, I will say, the one area he didn't touch was the bullpen. And listen, at the time, I was fine with that decision. I thought the bullpen was not going to be great entering the year, but what we saw last year, and especially what we saw in the postseason, I thought it would have been fine if we just ran it back. Now, I didn't think we should have ran it back with the Miguel Castro of the world or the Scott McGuffs, but minus those two, I was fine running it back and just replacing those two with internal options, to be honest. I think this D-backs bullpen could have been fine entering this season and just have been solid, just good enough. But so far, to start the year, the D-backs bullpen has been far from fine. entering game number 2 against the Colorado Rockies. If you could believe it, the D-backs actually have the 6th lowest bullpen ERA in the National League. So even though it feels like the D-backs have one of the worst bullpens going right now, they actually have a top, basically third bullpen in the National League right now. But I don't care what the ERA says. The eye test tells you this D-backs bullpen just hasn't been good enough to start 2024. And right now, it looks like the weakest link that could potentially hold back this D-backs team, because we saw this happen not that long ago. Back in 2022, that was a competitive D-backs team. But I think the area that held that team back the most was the bullpen, and I do not want a repeat of 2022. I do not think we will, but I also don't think the bullpen is I don't think the bullpen is strong enough right now. Outside of the two lefties, Thompson and Mantiply, and Ryan Thompson, of course, or outside the two lefties and Ryan Thompson, that's how I want to phrase it. The bullpen has been absolutely awful with runners in scoring position. You go up and down. Outside those three guys, the bullpen has not been good when the opposing team has had runners in scoring position. When the game is considered late and close, which is basically 7th inning or later in a 1-run ball game, the D-backs bullpen, horrendous. 366 average and 1040 OPS allowed. Not a surprise. D-backs bullpen also horrendous in high leverage moments. When the game matters, when there's runners on, when it's a close game, when it's a late game, when you need your bullpen the most to step up and get you a shutdown inning, especially when, the D-backs have a lead and maybe it's the starting pitching that's letting the opposing team in. And sometimes you just need your bullpen to come in and get that shutdown inning to make yourselves feel good. The D-backs bullpen has rarely been able to do that this season. And the biggest area of weakness for this D-backs bullpen has not been closing games in the 9th. It's been closing games in the 8th inning, because the 8th inning is where the D-backs have blown a lot of games so far this year. They have allowed 9 earned runs and 12 innings in the 8th inning this year, of course. So they've been in the 8th inning 12 times. They've given up 9 earned runs with a 900 plus OPS in the 8th inning. They have been absolutely horrendous in that area. And if you go up and down the bullpen, the two biggest bright spots so far in the bullpen have been Kyle Nelson and Ryan Thompson, who we saw in this game tonight and who have continued to excel for this D-backs bullpen. On the year, I think they're at like 13.2 innings pitched combined. Let me see if Kyle Nelson had any strikeouts. He had 0 strikeouts. So on the year, I think they're at 13.2 innings pitched, 9 Ks and 2 walks with no earned runs allowed. Those two have been the MVPs from the bullpen so far. And with Kevin Ginkel being our closer for, the future until Paul Sewald comes back, I think we need to see more of that trio going forward. When Kyle Nelson and Ryan Thompson, with the way that they're pitching, the fact that they're in a groove right now, Ryan Thompson should have already been the setup guy to Kevin Ginkel. I don't know why we've only seen him in like the 6th inning so far this year. Regardless, it needs to be Ryan Thompson and Kyle Nelson that come in as the 2 setup men for Kevin Ginkel. Like we saw tonight, you want to get those righties out first. So Ryan Thompson went in first, and then when it was time to get the lefties out, you went with Kyle Nelson. That's how it should be going forward. If it's a righty if there's a righty at the plate, or if there's a lefty at the plate, it doesn't matter. You're either choosing Ryan Thompson or Kyle Nelson, and then switching out one guy for the other once we get into that 7th and 8th inning. This has to be the combination for when it's a late close game. The 7th, 8th inning has to go to Thompson, Kyle Nelson, and Kevin Ginkel until we get some other guys to step up, because the Castros, the Friases, the McGuffs, and the Jarvises each have an ERA over 6, and they're just not cutting it right now. I would DFA McGuff and Castro right now. You have Castellanos, Justin Martinez, Andrew Salfrank, Christian Mena. All of them are looking really good in the minors right now. I would just straight up DFA McGough and Castro, they're not helping out this D-backs team. There are better options in the minor leagues they could call up and help out this bullpen right now. So for the D-backs, I don't think it's ever too late to upgrade your team. Go with the formula going forward of your trio being Nelson, Thompson, and Kevin Ginkel until Paul Sewald gets back. And then also make some tough decisions to get rid of the Castros and Scott McGuffs of the world, because once you start doing that, I think this D-backs bullpen would be much, much better. And of course, once Paul Sewald comes back, everyone else's role will be a little bit more defined. But until then, Kevin Ginkel, ninth inning, the combination of Thompson and Nelson in the 7th and 8th inning, and then get rid of Miguel Castro and Scott McGough. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. We'll, of course, be talking more after the D-backs take the series finale from the Colorado Rockies. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.